Hello, everyone. I'm Harrison, and I'm here with Colin.
Hello.
And welcome to the Brainstream podcast, which covers all things neurotechnology and a brain controlled future. I am genuinely honored and excited to welcome our guest, Nathan Copeland, to today's episode. Nathan is an invasive brain computer interface user and neurotechnology consultant. In 2004, he was in a car accident that left him with a C5 spinal cord injury and resulting quadriplegia. He later joined the Rehab Neural Engineering Lab at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center to test brain-computer interface devices to control a robotic arm, an exoskeleton glove to play video games, and make art. His work over the last 7 years has resulted in major contributions to science. Nathan is an ambassador for the field, has traveled the world to teach others about his experiences, and even got to shake hands and fist bump with President Obama in 2016. Or rather, Obama got to shake hands with him and fist bump him, because that's pretty cool. Currently, Nathan is working as a neurotechnology consultant for Blackrock Neurotech and, on his own time, has started making and selling NFTs on OpenSea drawn entirely with his brain-computer interface. And I just want to say, too, before we get started, that this is really exciting for me personally because some of the videos that I've seen come out of the lab with Nathan Copeland have been really, really inspiring to me. I saw one of the first ones come out 5 years ago where he was actually able to feel through the brain-computer interface, which we'll talk about. And that was just really, really cool. So it's great to talk to you. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Pleasure to be here.
So I'd first love to start out for our listeners with just talking about what types of technology you have implanted.
I have two Blackrock Utah arrays in motor cortex, and I'm the first human in the world to have implants in sensory cortex. So I have another two in there.
That is so cool. I can't wait to talk about those, especially the ones in sensory cortex. But those are microelectrode grids with 100 little electrodes, right, that go in on each one?
Yeah, they're 10 by 10 grids, and they're like little needles that just poke into my brain, and each one's capable of recording activity from a single neuron.
That's wild. Yeah, that's really cool. So after the accident, how did you first hear about this technology and this research, and what made you want to join it?
Well, after my accident, I ended up in a rehab hospital for a couple months, and one of the first things they asked me was if I wanted to join a research registry. And they just said basically anytime, a doctor would be looking for participants in a study, they would just, pop in the criteria that they were looking for. And if I matched that, they would just be given my information, and they could just, send me a letter or an email or a call. And that's basically what happened. Was one day I just got a call, and they asked if I wanted to join a brain computer interface study, and I said, yeah, that sounds super awesome. And I actually went in and did a screening, and I didn't meet their protocol. I had too much wrist function, so I have extension but not flexion.
Hmm.
And in their protocols, that was considered significant hand function, and that excluded me. And then it was another couple years after that, I was involved in a different study, and it was with the same team, and they asked if I wanted to join a brain-computer interface one. I said, yeah, I really wanted to do that, a couple years ago, and I didn't qualify. And they said, oh yeah, we changed those protocols, and you will now. So
That's awesome.
I also thought that was really cool, and it actually turned out to be lucky thing that I didn't qualify before, because that part of the study did not include the sensory feedback. So I kind of lucked into it, and everything worked out.
No, definitely. And then you got to say you were the first in the world with somatosensory cortex implant. Be able to feel through it. That's pretty cool. It's a good badge to have. It's pretty awesome.
And there's a few videos of Nathan using that initial brain-computer interface from that study, I believe, that we'll link below. Super interesting stuff. That was done what, back in 2008? Is that right, or was it a little later?
No. These were I joined in 2016, 14.
Oh, okay.
14 maybe.
Gotcha.
And how long did you end up doing research with that lab?
So coming up on May 4th, Star Wars Day, will be the 7th anniversary of my current implants. And yeah, I can't believe it's been that long. Really, it seems like the blink of an eye, but then also it just seems like I've been doing this forever. Like it's just always been this way, which is kind of cool, but kind of bittersweet because I know it won't always be this way. But who knows?
Yeah. So actually, on that point, I know that a lot of invasive implants degrade in their signal quality over time. And 7 years seems to me like a pretty long time for something like that to be working. Have you noticed any decrease in capability, and to what extent are you still able to use it?
Yeah, there's definitely been the expected drop in signal quality, and from what I've told, it's been stable for quite a while now. And I personally never had this like one day I can use it well, and then the next day it just didn't work as good. It's just kind of one of these things that maybe a little bit over time. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Just maybe I don't move the arm as fast in one direction, or it's not really lag. It's just different. Like I don't know. It's hard to explain. But also over time, some of the sensations that I feel have kind of changed and shifted from maybe their initial locations that I felt them for some electrodes, and it's been a journey, and it's still working, and I'll use it till it's broke, and then hopefully by that time I'll be able to upgrade to something better and use that till it's broke and rinse and repeat.
That's cool, and I love how you have. I think it's on your Twitter or maybe LinkedIn. Brain computer interface guinea pig or something like that. It's
I think that's my Twitter.
It's an interesting position to be in, and it's again great to talk to you on like the cutting edge of science. I think that's really cool. Before we get too much farther in, though, I want to give everyone kind of a frame of reference. So could you tell us about what experiments you were in and what you were helping out the lab with?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm the first in the world to have implants in somatosensory cortex. They can use intracortical microstimulation, so just little zaps like directly into my brain, and that will elicit a sensation that feels like it is coming from my own hand. That paired with the implants in motor cortex allow me to do things like move a robotic arm and pick up an object, and then when that object is picked up, the sensors in the robotic hand tell the computer to stimulate my brain on a certain electrode or set of electrodes that we had already determined felt like a specific spot on my hand. So, say like the base of my index finger and the base of my pinky finger. And so when the robotic hand would, have torque on those fingers, it would stimulate the electrodes that feel like a sensation is coming from the corresponding parts of my hand. That was basically the study that I signed up for in the beginning, and it was supposed to be a 1-year study to, measure the, efficacy and like they know it works in monkeys, but monkeys can't tell you like exactly what's going on and what and where it feels like. So
it seems like they kept you around for a little longer than that year, huh?
Yeah, it's one of those things that got to the end of the year and they submit all their paperwork to the FDA and the electrodes are still working. We didn't melt a hole in his brain. Like he's good. And then, then I had the option to, sign up for up to 5 years post implant. And then it seems like we blew through that date. And now currently it's up to 10 years post implant. So hopefully I get to that mile marker, and I hope everything is still working to a point. Like as much as I want to always have like the newest and best, that's one of those things that kind of did draw me to the study, besides just really wanting to help out people that were in situations like mine. Like I know it doesn't do the science any like it doesn't really give it my all if I wanted to like stop early and like upgrade. Like I really need to see how long this will actually last, because all of the data they have is from monkeys and stuff, and they say, oh, a monkey might have theirs for 5 years or whatever, but monkeys also bang their heads against stuff and like throw poop on them and that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things no one really knows how long it will last, and hopefully it's a long time.
Super interesting. So I'm sure a lot of people are really, I'm personally curious, so I'm sure a lot of other people are really curious as well. How would you describe what that sensation sort of felt like with that robotic hand, like when you gripped an object with that robotic hand?
Okay, so sensations are entirely electrode dependent. Mm-hmm. So depending on which one of the electrodes they stimulate on, it might feel like it's coming from the base of one of my fingers, usually the index, the ring, the pinky finger, my index knuckle, those kind of areas. And basically the kind of standard stimulation that was what we did for a long time in the beginning is at like 100 hertz. And so that's like the basic parameters, and those will elicit sensations like pressures, tingling, like warmth, that kind of thing. And then sensations can also change based on those parameters. So if they change frequencies, I might feel like a tapping on one of those areas, or like a vibration, that kind of thing. So,
but that's interesting. So is it like a consistent sense? I'm surprised too that you said you can feel temperature and vibration and touch, and so you have multiple components. But is it like a consistent feeling, or is it kind of pulsating? And does that actually change based on the pressure that's being exerted on the robotic hand?
For temperature, I've really only ever felt warmth, but yeah, depending on if I'm using the robotic arm, because we do lots of sensory experiments that don't involve the robotic arm. It's just like just send the pulses through the computer, and I just describe what it feels like, and those kinds of tasks too. But depending on how much torque is exerted on one of the finger motors, they can ramp the amplitude, which is basically the volume control. Most of the time, not all electrodes respond that way. I guess some kind of, my sensation feels the same intensity, like no matter what amplitude they use. Like there's a couple like that, but in general, the higher the amplitude, the more intense the sensation. So yeah, so if I'm, barely touching an object, I will get like a little bit of sensation, and as long as it stays at that force level, the sensation will stay until it's stopped by the computer. There is some habituation, like if I'm stimulated on the same electrode for long periods of time, or just a lot in a short amount of time, the intensity might drop off some. But for the most part, if the sensation I feel for that parameter is a constant, I will feel that for the duration of the stimulation. And then if the parameters are like a tapping or pulsing, that kind of thing, those will also continue for the duration of the stimulation. But there's a duty cycle that prevents the stimulator from running for a certain amount of time, and I don't know exactly what that length of time is, but it also changes depending on frequency and stuff. There's sciencey, complicated stuff that, like you said, I'm just the guinea pig, like I said.
Hey, well, without you, they're not getting a lot of research done. So everybody's got their part.
I pick up half explanations for lots of things, just being in the lab so long. So I can tell you, yeah, the duty cycle limits this and that. And...
Sure.
Really interesting.
Well, to try to explain a little bit of that, just for anyone that might not be familiar with neuroscience. If you take your two fingers, you take your middle finger and your pointer finger, and you put them up on the top of your head, right where some headphones would fall. That front finger is over an area called the motor cortex, which is the last stop in the brain that goes out to control your muscles. And then right behind that, we have the somatosensory cortex, which is where you're feeling those sensations that Nathan is talking about in terms of temperature and vibration and pressure. And how these kind of work. So we actually know from years and years of research and stimulation, neuroscientists know pretty well where the little areas are on the motor cortex and somatosensory cortex that correspond to the muscles in our body. So they know pretty well where the facial muscles are and the muscles in your hand and even your individual fingers are. And so they can use that and put the implant over that, kind of figure out where the electrodes are, do some machine learning stuff. And then over time, that's how Nathan is able to use that robotic arm by listening into those areas and picking up the signals that would otherwise be going to a hand. And then on the somatosensory side, again, same thing. There's a good map of the body that neuroscientists have, and they know generally where to stimulate to cause certain sensations. And I'm sure that there's a lot of calibration that needs to be done and a lot of learning. Nathan would be able to speak to that better than I can, but that's just kind of a general overview of how this stuff is able to work. So actually on that point, how long did it take you to kind of get used to using this stuff? And what was it like when it first started working? Because I imagine that's just a crazy experience to think and be like, whoa, it's actually doing what I want it to.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I was actually very surprised at how intuitive it really was, because, I had my surgery, and then I went home for a week to recover, and then like probably exactly a week or close to that after surgery, I went in to the lab, and basically to train a decoder, I watch a computer screen that has a virtual arm that is moving to targets. And the first time we use it, it's just basic up down, left right, and maybe in and out. And
forward back, yeah.
So I watch the computer version of it, and I think along. When it's moving to the right, I think just moving my arm to the right, and for all those directions. And then the computer, is looking at my neural activity, and it figures out when I'm, moving this direction or the other direction, this part of these electrodes are active. And so it just figures that all out. And I could do that the first day. I could move it
really
in those directions, and it just worked. And it's one of those things that I knew it would work, because I'm not the first person that's ever done that. Monkeys have been doing it for a long time. There's been some humans before me that did these motor things. But it really was just that simple. Just thinking about moving my own arm, and the robotic arm moved. And the sensory side of things took a bit longer than that. I think when I asked, they said it was around 3 weeks before I felt the first sensation, and that's mostly because for safety they had to stimulate on every electrode, but they had to start at a really low amplitude, because they had no clue what kind of intensity or qualities the sensations would have. So
yeah, I bet.
That's one of those things that luckily I'd never had anything that I would consider painful. But that's one of those things that they just didn't know. So they start low, and it was just, it seemed like a really tedious, well, it was tedious for me, but it was one of those things I kept saying, like, can't you just turn it up all the way, and then I'll just, I understand science needs to take some baby steps and
immediate threshold. Yeah.
But so I guess it was about 3 weeks, and then I was sitting there, and they were going through the task, and I was like, maybe I just felt something. I kind of had to do a double take, because it could have easily just been a random tingle that kind of felt like it was on my hand or something. But when they did it again, I was like, yeah, that's definitely what we've been waiting for. And it was just pretty awesome to just have that moment of realization that it really did work that way, even though, like I said, I had faith in the science, and what they told me would work, and but it's just that moment of, oh yeah, that's how it is. And it's one of those things where the sensations aren't 100% natural. There's not a one-to-one analog to something for every tingle that I felt. It's a tingle, and that's the best I can explain it. There are some things like pressure, obviously I can be like, okay, it feels like what being squeezed or pushed or whatever felt like when I had intact sensation. But for a lot of the other things, it's not unnatural enough to be like weird or anything. But sometimes I can't explain it in a like one-to-one. This feels exactly like this happening.
Sure.
When you have intact sensation. But as far as getting used to it, it's one of those things that, it was awesome the first time, and it's still awesome to think about now. But I've been stimulated probably like, I don't know, 1,000,000 times. I don't know. Like, it's second nature at this point for me. And
Sure.
as far as using it with the actual robotic arm, we found that the first time I did tasks where I was supposed to pick up an object on one side of the table and put it on a box on the other side, the very first time that I did those tasks with stimulation, I had a increase in performance.
Yeah, so I saw when I saw a video. I don't know how early on this was after you got the device, but I saw that you were blindfolded and there was one of the researchers was touching your fingers, right? And I don't remember the exact accuracy, but it was really, really impressive. How long into getting the implant was that?
See, that's one of those things that it's so long ago. I don't.
Yeah,
Sure.
hard to remember.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, that video was actually the very first time I ever did that task. And
Wow, cool.
Yeah, they just came in with the camera crew and were like, "Hey, we're gonna do this." I'm like, "Okay," and then and then it was extremely accurate, and because first I did a lot of motor only tasks, and
right.
By the time we had done that finger detection task, I had done a lot of sensory only tasks, because that's how they figured out what electrode they should stimulate on when they pushed each finger,
right,
and all that. And then the first combination of those two things was the finger detection, and then there was the ARAT task where I picked the object up on one side of the table and set it down on a box on the other. And I did that task, no sensory feedback, for a while until I was, extremely familiar with it. And then we switched to using the sensory feedback, and immediately we saw that there was an increase in my performance. Usually what they consider a normal able body time is under 5 seconds to move an object. Because this is a task that's designed to, I think, assess like people that have had like strokes or some sort of motor issues. So when I started receiving sensory feedback during that task, 20% faster or something. There's a video with that has the exact figures, but basically the translation time that it took for me to move the arm to the object, and the time it took me once I picked up the object to move it over to the table was the same during stimulation and no stimulation. But when I didn't receive stimulation, I would spend a lot more time before I actually picked up the object and moved to the like return phase. Because with only having visual feedback, it's one of those things where I could tell that there was contact, but I don't know if it was squeezing well, and sometimes I would pick up the object or go to pick up the object and it would fall out, and so I would spend more time in that kind of grasping phase where I would just make sure that it was in the hand good. So just spend extra time making sure I'm squeezing, and that it's not going to just fall out as soon as I lift it up. But when I received sensory feedback, I kind of got that instant confirmation that yes, there was contact made, and the kind of reassurance that contact is at a certain intensity, that I can just pick up the object and move with it. And it kind of just I don't know, I think gave me more confidence to just I think it just gave me more confidence to just go for it, just grab it and go for it. And that was really cool. So that's something that I didn't really need to learn how to incorporate the two, because I was, familiar with doing the task, and I was familiar with the sensations and where they felt like on my hand. And it doesn't really matter to me that they're not exactly 100% natural, just because I understand what it means, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you're the first person to do this, so the fact that you can even differentiate between it, and it's, like you said, it's not so unnatural that it's unusable. Like that's really amazing.
It's a huge stride in science. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I imagine too, like I kind of get what you're saying, because I imagine if, like the robotic arm that you're controlling, it's not, it's like right next to you, or it's across the room a little bit. And I feel like it seems to me anyway that would be kind of hard to try to control something that's like that far external to you. And so maybe you start getting that feedback, and does it sort of feel a little bit closer to you in that sense, and it's easier to kind of navigate and do tasks?
So the arm's always been mounted next to me, maybe like a couple feet in front of me and a little bit off to the right. And it's never been weird controlling it at that kind of angle, because I can see all the workspace and and all the objects within it. So it's never been that awkward for me. But there are, like I said, the situations where like I can know that I'm making contact with something, but maybe visually it's just not enough feedback to just really go for it. There's a video of some lady who, I think they numbed her fingers, and she's trying to strike a match, and then she just can't do it when she doesn't have any sensory feedback. And it's one of those things that you would think that you could do something, just it's something you've done before, and then you can see that you're doing it, but just having that extra bit of feedback can make a big difference.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That makes a lot of sense. So I know you've done a lot of different experiments within that. I've seen you like pouring some marbles, I think, from one cup to another one, and like using a exosuit arm to feed yourself a burrito. I like that one, and some video games and stuff too that you've played. So can you tell us, like, what are some of the coolest experiences and most exciting things that you've done with the interface? And aside from just the arm, like what else have you been able to use it for?
Well, first off, for coolest experience, for a few years, that was definitely meeting Obama.
Yeah.
And that fist bump and handshake. And then, I thought for a long time that would stay my number one experience. But then I got to go to Japan and do some presentations there, and going to Japan was one of my lifelong dreams that I thought was not going to ever come true. Yeah, I've done things like use the Glory Ha exoskeleton glove system, a number of different arms, and then cursor stuff that I've used to draw and play video games. And it's I actually have a portable system at my house now that I can use to basically just train a really simple decoder that can be used for cursor emulation or keyboard emulation, and I can do simple things like draw pictures of cats, and recently I started drawing.
Yeah.
My next project is an eyeball. It's a BCI because there's puns and all that, and
of course,
yeah, I played simple games like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and today I just had the, I think, brilliant idea of making more NFTs and calling them BCI boss battles, and just be clips of me beating bosses in games with my BCI. So now I need to figure out how to make a video clip in NFT. And yeah, like you said before, I turned a drawing I made of a cat into an NFT, and that sold, and now I'm trying to make it big in that space, which is slowly coming along, but
good.
I need to up my social media game and get the word out there. Yeah, I was just thinking though, like literally today I was just like, what else can I do? And I was like, oh yeah, like I played a lot of Sonic, and then I think what I saw was Twitch doing something with NFTs. I saw a tweet about it, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I could do game stuff. Then it's like, oh yeah, I know you can make little video clips, and I was like, what would be cool about that? And I was like, oh, I'll just beat Sonic bosses and and some other bosses. I don't even know. Like, go through all the retro games, and
I love that.
I don't know.
It's interesting. There's actually a guy who's in a similar situation, who uses eye trackers instead of a brain computer interface, and he streams. I don't know if you've played RuneScape at all in the past, but he plays a lot of RuneScape with his eye tracker.
To be in 9th grade again.
Gilding people's armor, trimming it.
I love that. I do want to say too that if people are interested in finding these videos or seeing your NFTs and your tweets and stuff, it's BCI can do better, right? Across, yeah. He's got very good brand consistency, I will say. It's on YouTube and it's on Twitter and all the stuff. It's good. And you've got one video with like a little over 200,000 views, right? With playing what video game was that?
That's my Final Fantasy 14 video. That's one of those things that they would always ask me what I would like to do with the BCI, and I just would always say play games, and then I was like, oh yeah, I want to play Final Fantasy 14, and then it was 5 years before that actually happened, because they were a bit more interested in doing real science, and that's one of those things that I enjoyed the drawing and the games, and that's why it's really nice that I have this portable system at home, because when I'm in the lab, completely understandably, real tasks get a lot more time.
Priority.
Yeah, priority. And then, I was only drawing in the beginning because they were, working on, cursor decoder stuff, and that's just a good way to, let me mess around with that, and I can describe my intentions, or they can just see them while I'm using it, and then that's a good way to measure, if I have good control over things. And
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I totally understand that from the scientist's perspective, but I think that like the video games and making NFTs is really important too, from just building awareness about this technology. Somebody might see that and like I did several years ago and be like, oh my God, this is actually possible. Like people are already controlling stuff with their mind, and maybe that inspires them to get into the space, or an investor sees that and is like, wow, maybe I want to, donate some money or invest in one of these companies. And so I think that, I mean, I'm biased because that's what we're doing here, is trying to make neurotechnology content. So like, I'm going to say that's important and a noble fight, but yeah, I don't know. I think that stuff's cool. One thing that I wanted to ask you, which is something that I ask pretty much everyone in the neurotechnology field, but you obviously have a more unique experience with actually having one of these devices. But what would your definition of a cyborg be, and do you consider yourself a cyborg?
Ooh, I'm definitely a cyborg. That's one of the things early on when I decided to actually make a YouTube channel, and I have a playlist on there called My Cyborg Adventure, where I just kind of I put any of the videos that I've uploaded, but also videos from the news, or just other interviews and presentations I've done for other organizations. I just kind of keep linked there, so just watch my adventure. So cyborgs, I guess, basically having mechanical, computerized stuff that is interfaced with your physical body in some way.
Sure.
So I think connecting your brain to something totally counts.
Yeah, I'd say you
So-
qualify.
Definitely.
I'd say you qualify.
Yeah.
That's cool.
One of the few real cyborgs out there, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So actually on that, do you think that, so right now, this technology is used for assistive and research purposes, but do you think in the future that everyone is going to be a cyborg of some sort? And what do you think those devices would do?
I mean, that's hard to say. Especially everybody. I'm sure there's always going to be people that are like, yeah, that's not my cup of tea. But I'm sure right now there's, a whole other large group of people that would go, yeah, I would do that, even if, I don't technically need it. I'm one of the people that, if I was, completely able-bodied at this point and I was offered this kind of thing, I would take it, and I would do the same things that I'm doing with it now, is
Cool.
Play games and make art and do things that some people, especially in research, or just some people in general, will just say there's not value in doing that, or it's not, they don't see it as this great advancement or awesome thing. They're just, video games, or he drew a turkey that looks like a 5-year-old drew it.
But with his mind, though.
Yeah, it's with my mind. Literally, no one in the world has ever done that.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of using the BCI to do things that no one has ever done just because I could do them and no one has ever done it before. So I'll play games, I'll draw turkeys.
It's wicked cool.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm just sitting here thinking about, like, man, how awesome that is, that you can interface with. I mean, and we live in such a technological world now too, that it's like you're the first of a new breed of what's to come, you know. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I've been surprised too, by function of putting out neurotechnology content, and Neuralink generating a lot of buzz because of its association with Elon Musk. A lot of people have reached out to us and been like able-bodied individuals have reached out to us and been like, "Hey, how can I get a brain implant? I don't know what it does, but Elon Musk said it's cool, so I want it. Elon Musk is doing it, so I want it." And I've been shocked. I've been like, "Really? Like, it's not. You're not going to be." I don't know, flying airplanes with it quite yet, but I don't know. It's interesting when I see some of the stuff that you've done. I'm surprised at where it already is and how quickly things are advancing. And again, I've just been surprised at people's willingness to get a brain chip or a brain implant of some sort to experience that. And it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective.
Have you experienced any like negative health effects from the device at all?
No. It's one of those things that, if I'm not using it, or even while I am using it, I don't really notice it. Like, I'm sitting here and, I have the pedestals that the cables attached to are anchored to my skull, and they stick up, a couple inches, and like right now, I don't notice them at all. And there, is an area directly around them, where the skin edge meets the pedestals, and that's one of those things that I have always had to take care of. It's basically open wound that leads into your brain. So that's one of the areas that currently you still have to watch. I think everyone that I know of that has had implants and had to have them removed, I think it's always been because of infection, just around the area. So keep it clean, keep an antibiotic ointment on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really notice it. I've hit my head on a couple of things before, and it's not really any more painful than anything else. But like my headboard, I've hit my pedestals on my headboard, and it's just kind of a weird sensation, but it's not really painful or anything. And yeah, I haven't had a loss of function is one of the adverse side effects that is one of the risks that is listed in the consent forms and stuff, because they are jamming something in your brain, and your brain might not appreciate that. But when I already have a loss of function in the areas that they're implanting, it's one of those things that I really wasn't worried about. And yeah, I'm still ticking. It's still ticking. Just keep the party going.
Very cool.
That's cool. I've got a really dumb question that I was thinking of when you were talking about going to Japan and stuff. And maybe there's a better question that underlies it. But so obviously when Colin and I jumped on this call, we know that you have a brain implant. I mean, that's why we're talking to you, right? But I'm just curious, like, presumably to go to Japan, you got on a plane and you had to go through TSA, and you're interfacing with people, you're talking with people that are not, that, aren't aware, obviously, probably don't even know that people have brain implants like this. So what kind of reactions have you gotten from people, and like how was going through TSA, I guess?
Yeah, well, that I didn't even think about. But so the way my hair is cut, like they're kind of hidden a bit, but you can definitely tell that they're there. And most people just probably don't even say anything, or they're really think about it, especially since, like you said, people don't, like the majority of people don't even realize this is a thing that's actually going on right now.
Right.
But yeah, TSA, like no one noticed. And now that I think about it, I'm like, that's kind of weird. They weren't like, hey, what's that?
You think they would detect something because they're, the pedestals are metal but that's interesting. So I guess then when you are talking to someone and you mention that you have a brain implant or that you've been able to do these things, someone that isn't involved in neuroscience, what's the range of reactions that you've gotten from people?
That's a hard question.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it is, because, I'm not, I don't know what they're thinking on the inside, but lots of times there's, either indifference or they're like, that's cool, or,
Have you ever heard like some visceral,
somewhere.
any visceral reactions of like, I can't believe you've done that and all that stuff?
Oh my God. No.
All right, I think we should start wrapping it up here. We have one more question for you. I know we talked about this last time. We talked a little bit, but have you had any dreams with your brain-computer interface where you've like used your brain-computer interface in that dream?
Yeah, that's one of those things that I've had lots of weird dreams and dreams I half remember, and I don't really know for sure. Like, there's never been one that has just been like weird enough or anything like that it stuck with me. But I'm sure I have, and it's just like I said, I have weird dreams, and especially now since I've been in a wheelchair, I'll have dreams where like I'm still in a wheelchair, but I'll like stand up and go like walk to the bathroom, and like go to the bathroom and then come back and sit down, and then just go about like, oh, I can't do this because I'm in a wheelchair, and then I wake up, I'm like, brains are weird. Like, yeah.
That is a great place to end it, honestly, is brains are weird. Because
brains are weird.
Definitely. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking with us. I really enjoyed this conversation, and hope to have you on again in the future or work with you in some other capacity. But if people, and we'll put a ton of links below in this video and wherever we put the podcasts to a lot of the videos that you've been in, your channels, some of the research. But are there any ways that people can find you if they want to reach out?
I mean, I'm always open to anyone just ask me a question or whatever. So Twitter's a good way to reach me. LinkedIn is where I get a lot of requests. My email's just bcicandobetter@gmail.com. That's basically anywhere that I am. It's BCI can do better. So that's Twitter, YouTube, email, LinkedIn, Instagram.
Yeah, we'll make sure to link all those in the description and in the notes of the podcast. But yeah, thanks so much for talking to us. This is a really, really interesting subject, and hearing your experience is fascinating, to say the least.
It's one of those things. Yeah, it's been 7 years, and we've been talking like an hour, and I'm like, there's still like a million stories I could tell you. Like, like I barely explained anything to you.
Well, before we go, then, is there any one thing that you think we should talk about that you want to share?
Yeah, I guess we talked about people wanting these things just because, and what it will look like in the future, but we're still in the very beginning. Like, we've only taken like a baby step to to getting these to the point where anybody can have them, but the they're definitely to the point where, you know, people that have some sort of condition that limits, you know, mobility and or that kind of thing, I think it's good enough to really improve their lives, especially if, you know, they really like to draw or play games, or, you know, they don't have the ability to move a computer cursor to get on the internet, or, you know, and, you know, text their family or whatever. So
Right.
it's the very, very cutting edge, and anyone that does, you know, get involved with these studies or has before, we basically all understand that this isn't for us. Like this, I'm not in this study, and
Right.
you know, this all this data they've collected. It's probably not gonna really help me specifically, because, you know, eventually I will have to get an explant, and, you know, hopefully I can get, you know, some new implants, but, you know, that might be years away. That you just don't know. And so we all just do it, especially, you know, I can, you know, mostly talk about my motivations, and that's just to push the science forward and make it so that people that come after me that have similar situations and injuries like I had kind of bypass the stage where they have this initial devastating shock and depression, and think they're never gonna be able to do the things that they loved doing anymore. Just to the point where I hope it gets to the point where it's just, you know, you have this injury and the doctor says, okay, here are these things that we can do for you, and here's how you can continue to have a life that, you know, you can find enjoyment in. And
It's a really
yeah, sorry.
noble cause.
So,
I mean, you're laying the groundwork for the future of the industry. I mean, yeah, it's incredible. And, you know, I think your service for the science in general is incredibly valuable for the future. And
Well, again, thank you very much. I hope that we get the opportunity to talk again in the future. It'd be fun to, I mean, maybe help you with some of this. Colin can help you with the NFTs or make some videos or whatever. But yeah, man, it's been great to talk to you. Buy his NFTs, buy his NFTs. And again, thank you.
like, subscribe, and
Like,
share.
subscribe, share. Yeah, absolutely. You know the drill. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
See you in the next episode.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.